My Lords, I wanted to at least query slightly the noble Lord Harris's of Harringay's idea that we've had a change of tone and consensus has broken out. We are, of course, at a point where there's no point fighting the last man standing, but I do think there are sort of some fundamental philosophical disagreements about what it is that we're doing here in relation to this bill. And so I wanted to just raise those because they relate to the amendments that we've heard about. I actually agree with the noble Lord Harris about that for smaller venues, even with 100 or 50 or what have you, that the point is put where we're setting a notion that everybody should be sensible, take precaution and so on. And I agree. My argument is simply that we don't need a piece of legislation at any level to encourage that, that actually this could have been done through present legislation that we have. For example, we have oodles of health and safety legislation. Councils are forever issuing guidance on how events should be organised, and that this is, if you want, a hammer to crack a nut, and that it might actually have unintended consequences. That's what all of us have argued. I'm constantly thinking, when I'm explaining to people what I'm doing in the House of Lords at the moment, what bills I'm following, and I explain this one, I can honestly tell you that people are just totally bemused that in relation to tackling terrorism, we're having a conversation about premises and that we're talking about regulators. They are more than aware of the fact that we need to tackle the problem and the threat of terrorism. This just doesn't feel as though it's the most important way of dealing with that. And so when it comes to, for example, the Reverend Bishop made a good point about, it's not as though terrorists sit round and go, that's a 500-seater versus, as we know, whether it's a dance class in Southport, whether it's an MP having a surgery, in the case of Sir David Amess, there might be small places. It might be using a vehicle as a weapon at a Christmas market. We've been through these different examples. The question before us is whether this bill will keep the public safe, and the contention that I've been making is I'm not convinced it will, but it will do a lot of damage to the public realm and could undermine civil society. So I do think, in a way, that some of these amendments just at least help to remove where there are smaller venues that are likely to be at the heart of community and civil society kind of events, that if they can be removed from the threat of legislative intervention, because there is a difference. Of course there's a difference between a law that, even if you're a small venue, you might think, well, we do take precautions. We have 200 people. It's not as though we wander around being oblivious to the protection of anyone who comes into our premises. But once you've got the threat of a regulator and a law, and it is coercive, and there are threats, and there are things that you need to do, and I don't mean do reports that have to be written, you are answerable, then, as we've seen in every aspect of the evidence that's been given in consultation, people are put off and they say, it's not worth running the venue then, it's not worth running the event, and volunteers are standing down, as a number of amendments later on will indicate. So we may have to make do with making the best of what I consider to be an unnecessary, distracting law, because I want us to fight terrorism, but not this way. But nonetheless, we should at least make it as the least of a bad job, I suppose, the best of a bad job.